We're back for another episode of App Stories. This episode is brought to you by Issue and Pillow. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Vitici. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing really well. People have been asking us a lot about Mastodon clients, so we're going to jump right in and talk about Mastodon clients because you reviewed Ivory recently.
Yes.
And I think people really are very excited about that app, rightly so, I think, too, because it's so good. But there are a lot of other Mastodon clients out there, and I know people have been asking you and me about what we think about some of these others. And one of the problems, I think, with Mastodon clients right now is there's such a moving target. Everything's being constantly updated. There's a lot of things in beta. There are apps really all over the place, but we thought we'd kind of take a snapshot, sit down, go through everything that we've been testing, and talk a little bit about what's out there.
Yeah, I think that's exactly like one of the main problems right now, especially on iOS, which, one of the things that I was able to confirm once again is that the app ecosystem is a lot more vibrant on iOS than on Android. In fact, I would actually say that the client ecosystem is more vibrant on iOS and the web than Android. There's some good clients on Android, I think, but really not as many as you can find on iOS, especially for the iPhone and then for the iPad as well. Fewer for the Mac, unsurprisingly. But also there's a quite active web scene at the moment, which we're probably going to follow up in a separate episode. But this is going to be, obviously, this is the beginning of a new era when it comes to the social network that we use. There's going to be more episodes in this series because there's a bunch of apps that I think we're just going to mention up front that are not available on the App Store. They are currently in beta. You need to sign up for a test flight beta. Some of them have closed test flight pools. Others are pretty much open. Some are coming out soon. Others don't have a release date. So we just figured, for this episode, we're going to be talking about the clients that you can find on the App Store. Like you listen to this episode, you open the App Store, you're going to find what we're talking about. But we're just going to have a quick mention, for some of these clients that are coming out soon. And personally, I want to mention Mona. So Mona, Mona, this is the upcoming Mastodon client by the same developer of Spring for Twitter. Which is a client that we have covered many times on Mac Stories, on the Club, on App Stories, mentioned in our Mac Stories Selects for 2022. Really excellent Twitter client built around the idea of total customization, no subscriptions, and a universal experience for iPhone, iPad, and macOS. Now, the developer of Spring is bringing their expertise and feature set, and even more because of and this is a theme that we're going to mention, because of the open nature of the Mastodon API. They're going to bring all of this to Mastodon with Mona. And I've been testing Mona in test flight. I don't have it installed on my Mac, but I have it on my iPhone and iPad. And it's as incredible as you would expect from Spring, right? Full customization for the tabs and sections of the app. You can customize the context menu that you can find when you long press on a post. You can customize the buttons that appear underneath posts. Like other clients, not all of them, but like others, it groups notifications. So it aggregates all of the notifications that you get for your follows, your favorites, your boosts, and your mentions, and it tries to group those so that your notifications tab is not a huge list of every single individual notification, as is the case, unfortunately, with Ivory at the moment.
Right.
It's got support for showing you verified links on your profile page. It's got, you can customize the UI, just like in Spring. You can design your own theme. You can make multiple sections. You can turn... one of the downsides, I guess, I don't know if you run into this, John, the search feature of Mastodon, it's kind of weird at the moment.
Super weird, yeah.
It's super weird, and it's not as, I think, well-defined, maybe, as the Twitter search syntax was. So you can create custom sections based on searches, but searches are different from Twitter. So it's an aspect that I need to spend more time looking into. And on the iPad, Mona, excellent experience. Multiple windows, multiple columns for each window. So if you want to have, different views on your Mastodon, maybe look at different instances, for example, you can do that. So this is one that I'm excited about. But like I said, it's a beta. It's not on the App Store.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Another one that I'm really excited about that's in beta is Wooly, which is by the Phoenix developer. I think it's Phoenix, the Twitter client. And
Italian developer, I want to say.
I think you're right. I think his name is Matteo, maybe. I remember seeing his name recently. But in any event, it too has groups notifications. It has a feature too that I like a lot that's suggested follows. And I thought, oh, this will just be like some generic list of random famous people. But no, it does seem to be digging into who you already follow and finding other people that you might like to follow based on that, which I've found that when I scrolled through that the other day as I was getting ready for the show, that I immediately followed like 4 or 5 people, boom, 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 right in a row, because they were people who I didn't realize I wasn't following. And they had probably joined Mastodon more recently, and they were surfaced in Wooly, which was really cool. And there's a view on the web button in Wooly that I'm looking forward to, because one of the things about Mastodon is that at times there are reasons to jump out to the web version of Mastodon, because it makes it sometimes easier to follow people or to find additional information about a post or something. There's things that are available in the web client that aren't really, I presumably aren't available in the API for developers. So being able to go out and open a post on the web is actually a nice thing too.
Yeah, and this is also one that I'm excited about, because it's got a pretty cool iPad UI, I believe, and of course Phoenix is a Twitter client that's been around for years, really powerful, and it's good to see the developer approaching Mastodon, and having more freedom to do what maybe they always wanted to do before but never could because of the Twitter API limitations. John, I haven't spent a lot of time with this other one. I know you have Mammoth, which is also coming out. This one is coming out soon, I think.
It is. It's coming out next week, as I understand it, or at least that's the plan if everything goes okay with app review. But it's highly customizable. It can be themed, and there's a lot of things that can be changed. There's a top friends feature, which I've seen in other apps too, which is really just a dedicated list of people you can tag as your top friends. If you want to just see, maybe it's your closest friends and you want to see what they're posting without having to see your entire timeline. It integrates SharePlay, which I haven't actually tried, which strikes me as a little odd. But I mean, I don't know. I guess you and I can collaborate on some posts, some hot takes at some time in the future with Mammoth, I guess. So if that's something that appeals to you, that's going to be possible. You can even post drawings. There's a very basic drawing tool within the app, so you can make a little drawing and then post that as an image. So it'll be interesting to see where that one goes. That one's been updated a lot during the beta period. I think I've run into a few bugs here and there with it still, but hopefully it'll settle down relatively quickly and be in good shape when it comes out in a week or so.
All right. Shall we talk about the clients that are on the App Store?
We should. Let's talk mainly, we're going to talk mainly, I guess, about iOS and iPadOS, because we can talk about the Mac a little bit later, but the Mac,
talk about
unfortunately.
the Mac and the web maybe in another episode. There's some interesting options, I think.
Yes, there's some interesting options, and the Mac doesn't have a lot of good dedicated native apps right now. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Issue. Whether you work for yourself or you're part of a team, it's time to get creative. Make your online presence known and your business stand out from the rest with Issue. Issue is an all-in-one platform to create and distribute beautiful digital content. From marketing materials and magazines to catalogs and portfolios, and so much more. There's no need for endless scrolling through PDFs. Issue features your digital content in an easy-to-view way on every device. Make it once and distribute it everywhere without reformatting. Your content is automatically optimized for engagement and ready to share, which saves you so much time. Issue also works seamlessly with the tools you're already using and love, things like Canva, Dropbox, MailChimp, and InDesign. I've been experimenting with Issue to do things like social media posts, And I really enjoy their templates too. They have a great set of templates that you can use and edit in apps like Keynote or PowerPoint. And then once you've got the content the way you want it, you upload it back into Issue, and Issue formats it for all the platforms you want to share from. Content on Issue can be published as public or private. Private only allows users with a shared link to view it, and public content is available for your audience, and it will be available to others to discover on the Issue platform. And this is cool. The platform also provides statistics on how your content is being consumed so you can learn more about your audience. With data on impressions, clicks on content, duration spent reading, pages viewed, and a whole lot more. Issue helps creators, marketers, designers, and really anyone who wants to make their content stand out. Get started with Issue today for free, or sign up for an annual premium account and get 50% off when you go to issue.com/appstories and use the promo code appstories. That's issuu.com/appstories and the promo code appstories at checkout for your free starter account or 50% off an annual premium account. One more time, that's issue.com/appstories and the promo code appstories. Our thanks to Issue for their support of the show.
Yeah, so obviously I think we should start with Ivory. I've done a review. This is the latest app by Tapbots. iPhone and iPad, Mac version coming out at some point, hopefully in the near future. Obviously, I think that what's most impressive about Ivory is that you can tell it's made by a development studio that's been refining their craft and skills for the past decade. Yep. This is by far the thing about Ivory, I think, is it's not the most full-featured client right now, and not even compared to some of the options in beta that we mentioned a few minutes ago. But even compared to other clients that you can find on the App Store right now, Ivory has fewer features. But it compensates for those fewer features with a much better, native, higher quality design. Just like the general feel of the experience, I think, in Ivory, and in all the little details, from the very core, like scrolling the timeline, like the very core action. It's the most fluid and smooth experience for scrolling a timeline with hundreds of posts that I've seen in any other client. Like it's just the best feel you can get from the Ivory timeline.
And it really makes a difference, because there are some of the apps that I've been looking at recently where I opened up a tab and thought, oh, this must just be broken. But then after several seconds, everything pops into view, right?
Yeah, and you can tell when and there's at least one of these apps that has that feeling for me. Like you can tell when some of these new apps are made with Swift UI, and you can see some of the jankiness that's typical of some Swift UI views and features. Like it's got that feel. This is something we mentioned before in App Store. It's like that Swift UI feel and look. You can tell. And right. Ivory, it's just imagine Tweetbot, but even better. Like it's so much faster. Like all the little details, the icons, brand new iconography, the animations, the reliability of the experience, the fact that you can quit Ivory, can come back the next day, and it's not gonna lose your spot in the timeline. This is not. It sounds obvious as a feature, but trust me, not every client does this as well as Ivory. Right. And then, of course, there's the fact that I think Tapbots has been able to find their enthusiasm again for developing a client after the whole Twitter saga. And you can feel it, I think, in the experience. Like the fact that Ivory has more options, for example, compared to Tweetbot. One of the things I like, Tweetbot has always offered an action drawer to show you actions for your tweets. Well, now in Ivory, you can have the action drawer for, when you tap on a post in the timeline, instead of taking you into the post's detail view, it shows you a drawer underneath the post with inline actions, buttons for boosting, replying, marking as favorite, and such. But you can customize that. And so you can now choose to have inline buttons, sort of like you can do in Mona, and that's a setting. There's a bunch of other settings, right, that you can customize in Ivory. But like I said, it's missing a few things compared to other clients. For example, it doesn't have some of the customization that you can find in some of the clients we're going to mention today. The iPad UI leaves a lot to be desired at the moment because you can only do like this narrow sidebar on the right side of the screen. It doesn't integrate with the native Mastodon API sync marker. Instead, it uses its own iCloud sync, which is super reliable, but it doesn't sync up with other clients. And so if you're like me and you want to switch between different Mastodon clients right now, you're always going to have to find, you're never going to find your position from Ivory because Ivory uses its own sync method. So it's a work in progress, and I mean, it's labeled as early access on the App Store. But at the end of the day, it is the client I go back to because of that polish, because of that fluidity and reliability.
Yeah, the core functionality is really, really solid. I want to mention two things. First of all, the filters, which I think you, in your story,
Yes.
people should take a look at what you're doing with filters, because the filters can be saved, and they're a really handy way to slice and dice your timeline in different ways. And as you said, you can easily, if you get way behind, catch up if, for instance, what's most important to you is something like seeing the links that people are posting. Filter so that you're just seeing the links, and that way you can get to the top of your timeline a lot faster. There's a lot of different things you can filter by, and the fact that you can save them is fantastic. The other thing I like a lot is the way the app handles links. A lot of these apps that we tried don't allow you to long press on a link and do anything with it, which coming from Twitter really, really bothers me, because one of the things I use social media for is to find links. And Ivory handles this super well because you can either open the link, which I think the settings lets you open it either, in an in-app browser or in Safari itself. You can add it to a reading list if you have one of the Read Later apps enabled in its settings. You can copy the link, post the link on Mastodon, or you can share it using the share sheet. And that's the largest array of different options for links that I've seen of any of these apps.
Yeah. All right. The next one I want to mention is Tasker. So Tasker is, I think it came out just a few days ago on the App Store. I've mostly used it on my iPhone, and it does a few interesting things, and it also opened my eyes to a Mastodon feature that I had no idea it worked this way, and I'm gonna explain it in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
So there's a few things that Tasker does really well, I think. When you long press on a post in the timeline, it shows you a native context menu. And this is the way it should be. You're supposed to either, like, the way I think about context menus are on the iPhone, there should always be a visible button to open a context menu, which there is, but you should also be able to long press something to show a context menu. And this also works in Tasker. But in addition to showing you a context menu, it also uses the iOS 16 API for context menus to show you 3 quick actions, 3 buttons at the top of the context menu. So like 3 buttons in a row for marking as favorite, boosting, which is called reblog in Tasker. I'm not a huge fan of the reblog terminology. I prefer boosting. And bookmark. So I really like this native iOS 16 look for the context menu. Another thing that Tasker does well in terms of supporting native iOS APIs, it handles rich links beautifully in the timeline. Instead of showing you just a raw URL in the timeline, it uses the Apple API for iOS rich links to show you a little snippet, like rich links appear in iMessage, for example. They are rendered as rich links right there in the timeline. So it's nice so you can, I don't know, maybe take a look at the hero image of a story, get a couple of lines of the excerpt of the story, or like, a preview of the blog post that something is linking to. I think it's really useful. On your profile page, shows you verified links. Very nice. Go to my profile. You can see Mac Stories, Club Mac Stories, and App Stories are all verified with a green check mark. You can customize the swipe gestures that you can perform on the timeline. And also something that, Tasker does differently from other clients. At the very top of the timeline, you have this segmented control to switch between your home timeline, your local timeline, in my case would be, just the Mac Stories local instance, or the federated timeline. However, there is also a menu to customize these timelines. And this is where I think Tasker needs a bit more work, because it's got a really good feature that I haven't been able to figure out. Maybe it's a problem of the Mac Stories Mastodon instance, and we need to tell Alex. So the Tasker feature is you can pin a hashtag to the timeline. So you can follow a hashtag as a timeline, which is a Mastodon feature. However, I haven't been able to make this work. I've been searching for things like Apple or Nintendo or iPad, and it wasn't showing me any results. So I don't know if it's a problem of Tasker or our Mastodon instance. Alex, if you're listening to this, I don't know. Take a look.
It works for me, TG.
It works for you. Maybe it was just me.
I just added hashtag Steam Deck and got a bunch of posts all about the Steam Deck.
Steam Deck?
Yeah.
It doesn't find anything for me. Huh. Do you type the hashtag, like the character hashtag?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Yes. It doesn't find anything for me. I don't know. When I search for hashtag, it's empty. So, I don't know. Maybe it works for you. Maybe it doesn't work for you. But in any case, I wish that Tasker also allowed me to pin a local timeline, like another local timeline.
Oh, you know what it is? You know what it is, Federico? Let me tell you what it is. That search feature is not to find hashtags. That's to find hashtags that you already follow. You have to already be following this hashtag.
Well, thanks for this. Is a top John tip. I think.
There you go.
I need to already be following a hashtag. Okay, that makes sense.
Because then you'll see underneath the search field, you'll see a list of the hashtags you already follow.
Well, this should maybe be explained a little. Maybe, Tasker developer,
it's not clear
if you're
at all.
listening, maybe a little informative message in the search screen, like hashtags that you already follow will appear in here. But this is a great Mastodon feature, right? You can follow a hashtag and make it a timeline. Okay, so I guess what I will do is I will start following some hashtags from my Mastodon account, and those will appear in Tasker. Great feature, great option. Something else that I would like to see in this screen is, in addition to pinning a hashtag, let me pin the timeline of a different local instance. So I can follow my favorite. I'm seeing now a bunch of organizations and websites set up their own instance, like we did for Mac Stories. Great. Let me pin those local timelines so I can see all updates from that organization. Tasker right now doesn't have this feature. However, the last thing I want to say about Tasker is also my favorite feature, which also opened my eyes to how this actually works in Mastodon. So in Tasker, when I was testing it, I came across the filtering UI. So you can create filters to show or hide content, to hide content from your timeline. And I wanted to hide any Twitter or Elon related posts. So I created a filter called Bird Site that filters for the words Elon, tweet, Twitter, and tweets. And this is a nice UI because in Tasker you can add multiple keywords. You can add the contexts, right? So you can say, for example, I want to have this filter just in my home timeline, or just in my notifications, or just in conversations, or in profile pages. Like, you have these different contexts that you can activate a filter for. But you can also choose, and this is a great touch, you can set an expiration date for a filter, very nice, but you can also choose the behavior, so which means if a post matches one of those filters, do you just want to outright hide the post from your timeline, like never show it? Or do you want to have a warning? And this reminds me of how filters used to work in Twitterrific. In Twitterrific, you could set up a filter. And then if a tweet matched that filter, in the timeline, you would see a collapsed view with a warning that said, hey, if you click this, it's going to show you a tweet for a filter that you wanted to mute. And here you can do the same thing in Tasker. Like, you can choose, do you want to have a warning, or do you just want to hide the matching post? And I thought, oh, this is great. This is a really nice Tasker feature, really well designed. Today, as I was, I was playing around with one of the clients for the web that we will cover at some point, Elk. That's ELK. I opened Elk and I opened my timeline, and I started seeing these posts with a warning that said bird sight. I was like, wait. So, as it turns out, in Mastodon and in clients like Tasker, the filters you set up are Mastodon filters. Are like they apply to your account and they follow you around. They are not client specific. Like I guess I'm
Right.
so used
Their
to
service level. Their service level.
they are
We're
service level
yeah.
filters, and this
We're
is
so used to
fantastic.
everybody building on top of
Exactly.
Twitter.
We are so this is one of the key sort of mindset changes that we need to keep in mind. We're so used to the Twitter age. We're like, oh, I guess this is an app specific feature because the Twitter API doesn't let this developer have like this native service wide option. But no, and so I started doing more research. And I can tell you, John, that another, I saw my filters appear in Tasker, and they also appeared in Elk on the web. And then I opened Ice Cubes, which is another app we're gonna mention today. And sure enough, my filters were there. So
that's nice.
This is so great because I'm not used to having this. Like this is how an API should work. Like you set up something and it's consistent in other places. Very well done, Mastodon and clients that implement the API.
Yeah, I really like that you can filter profiles here because one of the things I'd like to see in Ivory that, sometimes you run across a person who's a very heavy poster and all you want to see are their links. I would love to just, filter based on someone's profile page. And you can't do that right now in Ivory, but it looks like maybe you can do that here. Our thanks to Pillow for their support of App Stories. More and more studies show that getting a good night's sleep can help improve your health and well-being. Pillow is a simple app that helps you become more aware of your sleep patterns and make informed decisions about things that will help you improve your sleep quality. All you need to do is wear your Apple Watch while you sleep, and Pillow will take care of the rest. If you want to use Pillow with just an iPhone or an iPad, you can do that too with just the press of a button before going to sleep. If you have an Apple Watch, you can also get important information about your heart rate trends, variability, heart rate dips, blood oxygen levels for each sleep session. And you can record sounds during the night, like sleep talking, sleep apnea, and snoring, and other noises that might be disturbing your sleep. For owners of the Apple Watch Series 6 or newer, Pillow also will display information about the intensity of those sounds during the night and give you a rating for each exposure. Another valuable aspect of Pillow is helping you make informed decisions. Pillow comes with a dedicated section that can help you discover trends, get personalized insights, sleep tips, and easily compare your sleep metrics with your weight, steps, caffeine consumption, and other health metrics. If you want to wind down and relax before you go to bed, you can do that too with Pillow's growing collection of sleep aid sounds, guided meditations, bedtime stories, and music produced specifically for sleep. Pillow can wake you up using your iPhone, your Apple Watch, or your iPad at the lightest possible sleep stage using its smart alarm feature. And starting with watchOS 6, Pillow's battery consumption is also minimal. Last but not least, Pillow is very privacy-minded. All of your sleep and audio data is encrypted and stored on your device and in your iCloud account using end-to-end encryption. You don't need to register or create an account to use Pillow. You can use it anonymously, and it doesn't collect or send your data anywhere else. Pillow is free to download from the App Store and has a great set of free features that you can use every day. If you want to try Pillow's premium features, there's also a 7-day free trial. Just visit pillow.app to get started today. Again, that URL is pillow.app. Our thanks to Pillow for their support of the show. All right, Federico, we should probably talk about Ice Cubes next because this is a really this app has a little bit of a story because it got rejected multiple times by App Review before it actually showed up on the store as having, I guess, no functionality because you could just view Mastodon on the web. I don't know what happened there. Somebody got it in their head that this was not a useful app when there were a whole bunch of other Mastodon clients already on the App Store and in development. But in any event, it turned out okay. Eventually, the mix-up got corrected, and Ice Cubes is now available. It's also open source, so you can go take a look at the code and incorporate aspects of it into your own apps. But it's a very impressive app. It really ticks a lot of Mastodon boxes in terms of what the various things the API allows you to do. And this one has instance follow-ins, which is, I know, one of the things that you enjoy a lot, and I like it too. I'm hoping more media companies do this. I mean, I saw that Panic set up their own one, and so did the Icon Factory, and I'm starting to see more and more developers do it. I'd love to see more publications do it too.
Yeah, this is, I think, my favorite feature of Ice Cubes. And how it works, how it's been designed, is exactly what I want other clients to do. Being able to follow the local timelines of other instances, and in Ice Cubes, the fact that you can do it by just tapping on the title bar at the top of the timeline and saying, "I want to see what's up." I'm gonna give you some practical examples. I put out a call on my Mastodon profile. Asking for like what are cool local timelines I can follow, sort of like a feed. So being able to just click on indieapps.space and see the timeline of apps by indie developers, like this is actually great for me. Like this is a community that I can just dip in and out, see what's going on, maybe boost from my account, something that I find interesting. And when I'm done, I can switch to overkill.social, which is the timeline of, friend of the show, Kevin, and their Steam Deck, focused website,
Right.
Overkill. Really great publication. I can just, open, and I can see what Kevin and Chris have been up to. And on their recommendation, I started playing Hi-Fi Rush. John, we're gonna have to talk about
I
this.
saw that. I really want to.
We're
I
gonna
want to play
have to
that.
talk about this game.
Okay, yeah, I want to play that
let
game.
let me tell you, John. This is a quick spoiler for Unwind next week, I guess. You are going to love this game. The only thing I'll tell you that the tutorial, the song for the very first thing you're gonna do in the game is "Lonely Boy" by the Black Keys.
I saw that in the trailer, and I was like, "Yeah, this is for me."
Yeah. Anyway, so dipping in and out of these local instances is so good in Ice Cubes, and I want everybody else to do this feature. There's a bunch of other things that I would like to cover about Ice Cubes. I like the context menu. Like I don't know, I'm obsessed with these context menus. I really like how rich it is. Like it's got a ton more options than Ivory. It doesn't have the iOS 16 quick buttons at the top of the context menu, but it's really nicely done regardless. Unfortunately, the thing about Ice Cubes, I believe it's a full-on SwiftUI app, and it's got that Swift UI feel. It's got those quirks and those bugs. Like, I don't know, the timeline, it's not as smooth as Ivory when you scroll. When it fetches content, it feels kind of strange. Where like every single it displays the cells for the posts before the actual content, and so you see this like placeholder content before the actual posts, and it's kind of strange. Right now, as I was speaking, I long press on a post to show the context menu. And when you do that, the post that your finger is hovering over sort of becomes transparent. Like, I don't know. It's got some of those UI glitches that are, I don't think they are actually the developer's fault. Usually they tend to be Swift UI related quirks. Something that that I think Ice Cubes does well is there's a bunch of other details, I guess. I like how it shows you the information that of the client that the person used to publish something with. So it shows you, for example, whether you use Ivory or Ice Cubes or something else. I think that's very cool. I like that. Something else I really like about Ice Cubes is that it's got, and this is something that I guess developers will have to make a decision about. It has its own version of quoting a post. And right now, Mastodon doesn't have quote posts feature, like a native component for that. The creator of Mastodon has said they are now looking into that because so many people are asking for it. Right now, developers are sort of coming together and agreeing upon like a common standard, even though it's not a standard. But Ice Cubes is one of those apps that does it the right way, I think. If your post has a link to another post and you're saying, I'm quoting, I don't know, John Voorhees, and you paste a link to a post from John, Ice Cubes is gonna render that link as an inline quoted post. And I think
Hmm.
that's the way to go for now.
Yeah, I think that's a way to do it. I mean, I think what's interesting to me is this is one of those circumstances where the demand for quote posts is enough that I think that it's going to happen whether the Mastodon folks implement it themselves or not, and
Yeah.
it'll end up being just kind of a convention more than anything else.
Yeah. Couple of things I don't like. I'm not a huge fan of the segmented controls on profile pages. They are unlabeled. They're just icons. You can tell that the star is, okay, let me see this person's favorites. The bookmark is the bookmark, but I'm not a huge fan of segmented controls that don't have any text. They are just icons. I'm not a huge fan of that design choice. And I kind of dislike the GPT integration for editing a post that you are composing. This is a bigger conversation that goes beyond this episode. I'm feeling very ambivalent. Maybe is that the word about GPT at the moment?
Don't
I
get me
think
started, Federico. I actually
okay.
okay. We have to we have to do something about this.
We
at
have
some
to do
point.
something about this, but like I don't know. I think it's equally impressive when it can help you as a tool for like actual, I don't know, for like finding patterns. Obviously, some of the OpenAI technologies like Whisper, different from GPT, but like they are doing incredible work. At the same time, I find it kind of gross and ridiculous when I see these features like have AI write a blog post for you or write an email for you, or in this case, edit a post on Mastodon for you. Now,
There you go.
thankfully, this GPT integration can be disabled in Ice Cubes, but when it comes to the creative aspect of GPT, I find it kind of, yeah, just, I don't like it.
Yeah. I think the thing about ice cubes that I guess if there was a design choice that I would mention that I'm not a huge fan of, it's that floating button near the top that says one new post.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It just gets in the way. It's too much. It needs to be somewhere else maybe, but it's, I get it. I mean,
Yeah.
and you have to kind of tap on it, I think, in order to load that post. It's not like it does it automatically, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of interesting stuff in here nonetheless.
I want to mention I have a collection of other clients that I haven't used as much, but still I have some quick impressions to share, and maybe this can
Okay.
be useful to people. Mastodon. This is it's been on the App Store for a while. Mastodon, very very elegant design, very clean, great performance in the timeline, almost ivory level smoothness in the timeline. I really like, again, this is another case of a context menu with the iOS 16 buttons at the top of the context menu. However, the context menu you cannot activate with a long press. You need to
Right.
tap on a specific button, which I'm not a huge fan of.
And it's a very small touch target. I really feel like when
Yes.
you're scrolling a timeline, that long press comes in very handy.
Yes. This is another app that, where possible, uses rich links. Very nice. They have the same style of rich link previews in Apple Notes. So this is, again, another implementation of a native iOS API. It shows you verified links on your profile page. So that's also very cool. And they are actually styled just like a Mastodon with a green background. I think that's really nicely done. I feel like Mastodon is worth a look if you're looking for the same sort of polish and performance that you want to find in Ivory, but with a more standard, and I'm not gonna say this in a derogatory way, but like more iOS native design. It doesn't have its own identity and style like Ivory with a custom icon set. Like Ivory is very native but custom. This one uses SF symbols. It's more of a regular look. But I actually think like it's been around for a while. It's got a ton of features, and the performance is good. and it works really well on the iPhone. So this
Yeah, I agree. I think that if it got those context menus right, I think that
yes.
would go an awful long way to making this thing a much more well-rounded, because I have the same problem with links. You can open up those link previews, but you can't do anything with a link until you open up in in the
Yes.
in-app browser.
And
You have
same
to
with
do that.
images. Same with
Yeah.
images. Unfortunately, in Mastodon, you cannot long press on images to have a menu. So yeah, maybe more gestures, I guess, especially for menus. Those would really come in handy. I don't know, John. Do we want to mention Toot?
Yeah, Toot is it's interesting because it lets you do things like filter out boosts and replies, which I kind of thought was nice in your notifications. It has some nice features that way. And the only thing, there are a few UI oddities like switching accounts and is not super easy. And I found some spots where the buttons at the top, the segmented controls were kind of blending in with the background. It was a weird bug, I guess, or something. But it does that notification filtering, I think, is really important, especially if you're maybe you have a post that gets really popular, and it's nice to be able to just see what you want to see, whether it's the people who are following you or maybe the people who are boosting your posts.
Okay, and I want to mention another Toot. This is Toot with two
It's a
O's
little
and the
confusing. Yes.
exclamation point at the end. Um, this is a client that's been around for a long time, and I appreciate the fact that the developer has been working on this app for a while. It has a lot of features. My main issue with Toot is that I find navigating Toot a little strange. It's got a bit of a gimmicky UI, maybe.
A
Um,
lot of animation.
lot of animations, buttons that are text buttons instead of icons. Like, for example, in the timeline, Toot says reply, boost, and favorite. It actually, like, the buttons are text,
Those words.
those words, and I find that a little too much. um it's got like all these colored lines and indicators when you open a post that has a bunch of replies, and I don't fully know what those colored lines mean. Maybe they are the order of the thread. I'm not sure. I don't know. Then when you tap on a profile picture, there's a bouncy animation that opens that profile. There's a I don't know how to call it, a wheel menu in the bottom right corner that you can long press to sort of make the window go sideways. Like, there's a ton of animations that feel a bit gimmicky. However, there are also a lot of features because this client has been around for a while. And so even though it's a little bit hidden, you can navigate to a different local instance from a different Mastodon server.
Right.
It syncs your filters with the Mastodon API. So it's got a ton of features. And again, I appreciate the fact that this client has been on the App Store for a long time. I just wish that the design was a bit more intuitive for iOS users. And maybe this is something the developer can work on, because like even if you open settings, you will see there's a ton of settings in here. And obviously this kind of stuff, I can appreciate custom icons, the fact that you can enforce attaching a description to an image. Really nice idea. Really helps in terms of accessibility.
Yep.
Accessibility that we haven't mentioned today, but it's obviously important. We are not experts when it comes to accessibility and checking whether an app is compliant with voiceover, for example. Maybe we should try and because this is an important aspect of the Mastodon experience, maybe we should try and get the opinion of someone who's more knowledgeable in this field than we are. But we just, we haven't had the time. Doing this research was already a lot of work, and but I've been thinking about it. I don't know how to check myself, but I just wanted to mention. Rest assured, it's not something that I am ignoring as a field of this new ecosystem. And so yeah, Toot, a lot of features, a lot of settings. I just wish that the design was a bit easier and intuitive, especially for navigating the different sections of Toot with the exclamation point at the end.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think that that little wheel feature is interesting. I mean, it's I think it's pretty handy for if you have multiple instances that you're navigating between. But if you don't, which I didn't have it set up for anything other than ours, it kind of gets in the
Yeah,
way, and this
my,
feels
my
a little
main
weird.
my main problem with it is that it constantly accidentally triggers
Yes.
the reachability feature of the iPhone. When like
Oh yeah.
if you pull down on the home indicator, it reachability kicks in and it sort of lowers the UI so that you can reach it with your thumb. And for me, if I quickly flick over the wheel, I always accidentally trigger reachability.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I get that, especially if you're right-handed and holding your phone in your right hand a lot. I can totally get that. Being left-handed, I don't have that problem as much as you do,
Hmm.
Federico.
Hmm.
All right. Well, I think that's probably a good place to stop for today, unless you had anything more you want to talk about, Federico.
I think I covered all the apps in my list. There's a bunch of others that we'll probably mention in another episode because they're a bit different. They do different things, and like I said, we're gonna do another because more apps will be coming out, and I want to talk about some of the Mastodon utilities, Mac clients, and web clients because, like I mentioned a
A
few minutes
lot of
ago,
web clients.
a lot of innovation happening in the web space for web-based clients, and I want to talk about those.
All right. Well, we'll do that again soon. I want to thank our two sponsors for this episode. That's Issue and Pillow. You can find Federico and I over at macstories.net. We can also be found on Mastodon, where we have new short subdomains for each of the Mac Stories team members. Federico is fetici.macstories.net, and I am johnvorhees.macstories.net. Makes it super easy to find us.
It makes it super easy. So what you do is just open your browser, open Safari, and you just type vitici.macstories.net, and you will be redirected to my Mastodon profile page. We're not talking about like the actual search feature of Mastodon. This is just an easier way to find our profile page in your web browser of choice.
Exactly. And of course, we're over on Instagram too, where Federico is at Vitici. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHEES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.